Hey guys, welcome back to Under the Pink. I'm Kristen, and let's just get right into this. The last video I made, I talked about some crazy shit that I discovered on Apple Music or Spotify, just music streaming services, connecting to a mysterious musical artist and some crazy songs. It's a whole thing. So if you haven't seen it, go back and check it out. But I'm kind of going to talk about a continuation of that and go into a whole other insane situation that rivals that in terms of craziness. So this video is going to kind of be for the people who have been following along. This is not really going to be the ideal video as an intro to me, my content, and my channel because there's a lot to get into and it's already Halloween and I want to get this out before we head into the indie shows of Taylor's Eras Tour on Indie Night 1. So I'm just gonna really dive right in. If you want the backstory, please go check out my TikTok, Under the Pink 7, check out my other videos, etc., etc., etc. Okay, let's get into it. So the situation is that it all kind of just connects one thing to another, that kind of snowballs into one big ass situation. So it's kind of hard to talk about if you don't talk about all of it at once. So, like I said, the last video that I uploaded on my channel was about a mysterious set of 12 songs that were uploaded by a group called Do What You Love, and each song had a different copyright and a different songwriter. And the songwriters were things like Buddha and Walt Whitman and a folklorist. And just a bunch of people that seem very connected to the story. And then the copyrights were things like connected to the do what you love. So there were things like even when it's hard to, and in the middle of the night, and in the daytime too, and also mockumentary. So very mysterious, very crazy. Posted in 2019, with the first one being on June 3rd, which is the day that Taylor played Glitch 5 years later. And the first song is called Tree. And then there was a glitch, a period of time where no songs were uploaded for 18 days. And then the rest of the songs began being uploaded on the 21st, June 21st. So the third was not on a Friday. And then on the 21st, they started being released every Friday, just like musical release usually are, and ending at the end of August. Okay. That time period actually parallels perfectly with the time 3 years earlier in 2016 that Taylor spent with Tom Hiddleston. That entire period of time is like a fever dream because Taylor literally was with Calvin Harris for over a year and then, of course, split up. And less than a couple weeks later, seen with Tom Hiddleston all over the world for 3 months. And then they split up. But that entire thing was happening at the same time that the whole Kim Ye situation was happening. It happened parallel to that entire thing, the famous music video, the Kim's interviews, like the whole thing was happening simultaneously. And 3 years later, so that is the same period of time that these songs were released. So let me talk about some of the other things that happened on those dates. And then I'm going to get into the rest of it. Okay. So I have this little calendar and this is showing June of 2016, but the like blurple ones are things that happened on that date in other years. The lavender ones are things that actually happened in 2016. So you can see here that the Taylor and Calvin split happened on June 2nd, or it was announced on June 2nd. And that's the day before the glitch, right? Okay, 8 years later is when she played Glitch the next day. So considering the infinity sign 8 of it all, the timing is suspicious. The split was announced on June 2nd, and then the glitch starts 8 years later, or that's when it's played. She also sings Everything Has Changed. So then 3 years later, the song Tree comes out by Do What You Love. The copyright is All Day, Every Day, and the author is Buddha, and it is 2 minutes and 8 seconds long. Think of the coffee cup, 2 and 8, 28. Okay. So then, literally 13 days later, Hiddleswift begins, or officially in the papers. And Calvin starts erasing Taylor from his Instagram, deletes his tweet about the breakup. So he tweets and then deletes, oh boy, it's about to go down. Okay. So originally he had tweeted about the breakup, said they were going to be friends. She'd retweeted it, all of that. So he deletes that tweet and then tweets, oh boy, it's about to go down the same day that Hiddleswift shows up in the papers. So 3 skull emojis. And then the photos are released. So somehow he had gotten a heads up. The next day is Kim's GQ interview. The day after that, Tom and Taylor take a private jet to New York City, and Tom is stopped by the Paps after the gym to be asked about Taylor. Okay. Then fast forward a few days on the 21st, and this is kind of during the glitch period when we're not getting any songs in 2019 by Do What You Love. So whether that's like the period of the glitch or whatever, from the 3rd till the 21st is kind of the period where we don't get music. Is that the glitch? Who knows? Okay. That is the period of time though that Hiddleswift begins, Calvin tweets, it's about to, pop off. Kim's GQ interview starts, and Tom's asked for by about Taylor for the first time. Now, if we're thinking about, and I constantly am constantly thinking about the butterfly effect of it all, like the root of everything. If you go back to when something starts, if one thing had changed, would everything be different today? So the beginning, the Snakegate Taylor cancellation did not start with Kim. It really started with Calvin. So Calvin's tweets and Calvin tweeting about how Taylor's not going to take him down like she did, like she tried to with Katy Perry, which I'll talk about in a minute. Katy Perry saying that Taylor was a wolf in sheep's clothing. All of those things really had led up to the attitude that the public had about Taylor, so that when Kim said what she said, it ignited. That was in the period of time that the Nicki Minaj thing happened. Like, it was at that point like a matter of time, and Kim is like the one who lit the match in this long fuse that had been burning for a while. But if you're thinking about the butterfly effect, this moment kind of is the beginning. The GQ interview where Kim says that Taylor had approved it, and then Hiddleswift the day before, probably damage control, and then Calvin tweeting, this is about to go down. Like, this is going to play out on Twitter. So then we get to the 21st, which is when we get the first song in 2019 called Bar None. And remember, the artist is called Do What You Love. And so the copyright is even if it's illegal. So do what you love, even if it's illegal. And the author is Beaver Cleaver from the Beaver Cleavers, or from the Beaver Cleaver, whatever the fuck, from that show. We can talk about that in another video because what the fuck. So that's the song that comes out on that day. That's also the day in 2024 when the Bad Blood documentary is released, the one that was supposedly neutral, that Scooter was happy to have, that whole thing. I don't think Taylor was behind it, obviously, but interesting that that's the day it was released, right? It's also Lana's birthday. So that's also when we get the behind the scenes of the Fortnite video in 2024. We also get Us released by Gracie featuring Taylor. And that's also the day Prince William was at Eras with his kids, the day that Taylor posts Travis officially on her Instagram for the first time. And that's also the anniversary of when Taylor posted her Apple letter I think that was in 2014. But that's also the anniversary that Taylor posted her letter to Apple about changing the rules of streaming. The first time that she really made a huge stand for artist rights, right? Okay. And in 2016, the whole timeline of it all, this was also Taylor's very first public appearance that she made with Tom as an official couple, I guess. She was with Abigail, Tom, and her brother Austin, Selena's concert. And I think it was in Nashville. So that's on the 21st. A lot going on. Then on the 23rd, Tom meets her parents. So 8 days after their official and 1 week after Kim's GQ interview, Tom meets the parents in Nashville. Then they fly to England and they're in Essex, and Taylor is there meeting Tom's parents, meeting his mom. And crazy, crazy timing. We're talking 9 days after they go public. She's meeting his mom, and that's when Calvin starts with the messy tweets. So he says that Taylor controlled the media narrative of it. He's not jealous of Tom, but he's free. Okay. Very interesting verbiage considering he and Ellie Goulding just released a song called Free literally last month or right around the VMAs, and he had a shirt on with space, like a space scene on the back. It's a whole thing. I've made a few tweets about it, and I think I made a TikTok about it. If so, I will link it. So that's when all of that happened. So then the second day that Taylor is photographed with his mom, they saw her on two different days. This is like the day that they were seen together, like on the beach. That is the day that the Kanye famous music video is released. So she's literally on the beach meeting Tom's mother, and the video comes out. And she's just like out living her best life. Insane. Looking at the timeline of all of it, that was like the most insane period of time. Literally the definition of a cruel summer, I would think. Like, what the fuck? Okay. So then on the 27th, they are in Rome. And that's when they go to the Colosseum. Now, keep in mind, the Colosseum is when where the gladiators would have had their fights. Very meta. They make out on the roof of the Colosseum. So then the next day, the 28th, this is all like within 1 week. So Taylor and Tom are still in Rome. So the song that's released that day in 2019 is called Traction, and it is Do What You Love and Nothing Else. And the author is John Haywood, who is famous for epigrams and proverbs. So, all of the little things that Taylor throws into her songs, like if the shoe fits, wear it, things like that. He is like the king of that. He came up with so many of those. So he's the one who authored that song. So again, when we're talking about the butterfly effect, way back in 97, I believe, that is when P. Diddy first started charting for I'll Be Missing You. This was his first huge hit. It was made in honor of Biggie Smalls, Notorious B.I.G., who had been murdered. And he made that song with Faith Hill and 112, the group 112, who was mentored by Diddy. So they made that song together, and it was made over the entire melody of Every Breath You Take by The Police, by Sting, who we have seen several times recently in the whole story that we've been seeing. So he was also a guest with her on the Midnight's visit for the Graham Norton show in London. They were guests together, she and Sting. And that was when she was wearing like the orchid dress. Sting also sent her flowers when she was going to Ireland that had orchids in it. Okay. So that song really put him on the map, like in a whole new level. So when we're looking at the butterfly effect of everything, that's an important date. So June 28th. Then on June 29th, that's when they get their union blessed by the Pope at the Vatican. So we are talking about, let's see, 13 days. 13 days after they went public, they get their union blessed by the Pope. Okay. So on July 1st, the media questions him again. The conspiracy theories are getting kind of crazy about them being PR. And E has this whole theory about how she's just filming a music video and he's starring in it as the love interest. So, like, the stuff is getting like crazy online. Then we are at the 4th of July. I feel like we always see like these clips and these pieces of the story. And then when you realize, like, oh my God, these things happen so close together, it hits really different. So we're talking, let's see, they went public on the 15th. So the Tamerica party where we get the I Heart TS shirt, which he did say was a inside joke, a friendly joke that the internet just took and ran with, which I totally do believe. But we're still talking about like 18 days after they went public. She has her Tamerica party. Tom is officially posted on Taylor's Instagram already, and just a very interesting mix of people were there. That Tamerica party was pretty iconic, 2016. Okay, so then the next song that's released is on July 5th, 2019, and it's called Stoic. Do what you love until it's over. And the author is Theo Thutmose, who is an Egyptian pharaoh. There's a whole story behind that, but that's the song for that one. And then the next day, July 6th, Taylor and Tom head to Australia, and they are there for over 2 weeks, like 15 days or so. So Australia can also be known as Oz. So they're down under for like over 2 weeks. And during that period of time is when everything like really went crazy. It's crazy that she was in Oz. And when we're thinking about like the mirroring of everything and the upside down and the flip it and the two sides and all of that stuff, that when this period of time happened, that's possibly a glitch or whatever, whatever we're looking at here, that she kind of used that time period in 2019 to kind of tell a story, and then all the way here we are in 2024 and we're still apparently talking about that time period. Everybody thinks that it's just about like Kanye and Kim, but like it's so much bigger than that. It's all tied together. Okay. And, this is also just a few months before the election that Taylor had said she was seriously affected by this election, everything that led up to it. The song Evermore was about her feelings about that election. Like, we got Miss Americana and the Heartbreak Prince about this time period. Like, this was a very crazy time in her life. Okay. So they go to Australia. The day after they go to Australia, a TMZ story drops about Calvin's new song, and it's called Olay, and it's supposedly about Taylor cheating on Calvin. So its lyrics suggested Taylor cheated on Harris with Hiddleston. You've hidden my name in your phone so you can call me to tell me you've been going through hell. Left him alone and you booked in a hotel. Kind of sounds like a getaway car. Low key, you won't tell none of your friends about me. Harris apparently has nothing against Hiddleston. He just thinks the actor is under Swift's spell. But that doesn't, I don't know. I don't want to get into all of that because there's a whole analysis that can be done about that whole situation. I don't want to get off the rails. But so that story drops about that. The next day, Calvin drops Olay. See, so sources tell outlets the song was written before the split and recorded months ago, which makes me think it was about earlier in the relationship. Like I said, another video. So they're in Australia, a few days go by, and then her very last Insta post that she makes before she deletes her social media is made July 12th. So it was about Selena's fetish. So it's also just noteworthy that the first public outing that she and Tom had was at Selena's concert. Her last Insta post was about Selena. And then the song that drops on that day is called Lonely. Now, the universe works in mysterious ways because Justin, Selena's ex, song Lonely was created with Benny Blanco, Selena's current boyfriend. Universe and Taylor Swift are like this, let me tell you. Okay. So the copyright on that one is even when it's hardest to. So do what you love, even when it's hardest to. And the author on that one is Edgar Poe. We know who that is. And who also has a poem about loneliness. I talk about that in my other video. But the timestamp on this one, again, 208. There is a story about, or several stories about Hiddleswift proposals. We are still not even a month into this relationship. Remember, it was announced on the 15th, 13 days after the Calvin Taylor split. Then we get proposals 28, 29 days. 28 days would be funny. 28, 29 days later. And that's also when the news drops about This Is What You Came For. So, tabloids report Taylor and Calvin did actually write a song together. Now, the timing of this, of course, insane as the timing of all of this is. But there was also a soundbite that had dropped about Calvin saying that he and Taylor would never collaborate together. It seemed kind of demeaning, whether it was intended that way, who knows? The story has been that that's kind of why Taylor's team leaked that he and she had written the song together, but it kind of seems like it fits into the whole thing. And if you are a performance artist, man, let me tell you, this whole thing feels very performance art because lightning strikes every time she moves. Just thinking about what her music is saying now and when she sings, This Is What You Came For, very purposefully during the Eras tour. All of the electric touch, lightning. Anyway, you get it. Seems very intentional, especially when we think about Rihanna's collaborations with Calvin before and since this, her relationship with Diddy, all the stuff that's come out recently. Her real name is Robin. They've Rihanna and Taylor have known each other for years and years. So it's just interesting. And we'll revisit this later. Okay. So he Calvin tweets, confirms that this is true. He says that Taylor is a very talented songwriter. He admits that she even sings a little bit of backup on it. But then he starts tweeting like, stop dragging me down. If you're happy in your new relationship, you should focus on that and instead of trying to tear your boy instead of trying to tear your ex-boyfriend down for something to do. I know you're off tour and you need someone new to try to bury like Katie, etc., but I'm not that guy. Sorry, I won't allow it. And starts tweeting about how he did create the melody and mixed it and all of that stuff, which is completely valid. They made that song together. And then Rihanna, of course, added her voice. Like, this is a collaborative effort. It wasn't just like Taylor made the song. And I think he was feeling very like protective over that, which is fair. But this is really what started the entire Snakegate thing. And so I, not to get too in the weeds, but I just wonder if Glitch started on 6/3 because it was the day after the Calvin Taylor breakup announcement. Because if she hadn't started that relationship with Tom, whether it was authentic or not, and so much of the public and the media and everyone thought that it was a distraction from the Kim thing. Again, whether it was or not, she was already in a period of overexposure. And that just really had all eyes on her. So when this stuff happened, all eyes were on her, but already people were over it. They were overseeing it. They thought she was playing up this relationship to avoid something that needed to be talked about. It seemed disingenuous. Was she playing the media? And then, you know, because so many eyes were on her, what Calvin said got so much more attention. Like, obviously, it would have always gotten attention, but would it have got as much attention if this whole Hiddleswift thing wasn't happening? I don't think so. And, like I said, this contributed heavily to the start of her like cancellation. So when we're talking about, making mistakes, making changes, I could imagine that from the moment of that breakup, that period of time and those decisions she made might be decisions that she would do differently so that this didn't snowball and become what it did. Obviously, this was a very traumatic period of time for her. And I think a lot of things obviously happened behind the scenes that we know nothing about. So we're really getting into it now. They are shopping in Australia and they go to a movie with the Thor cast. And so then Tom's friends are starting to make comments about Taylor. It's very familiar how it always goes kind of the same way. And, saying how good they are together, all of that stuff, and his co-stars in Thor. And then you see here on the 1 month anniversary, can you believe all that happened? And it's been 1 month, on the 1 month anniversary of them being seen together, his friends start talking to the media. That's the Thor friends, all that stuff. So, okay, they're still in Australia. And then on the 17th of July, Kim drops the edited video, the Snapchat video where she talks about, shows proof that Taylor had approved the lyric and all of that stuff. So that's when Snakegate really started on Twitter, July 17th. I can't believe it's still only been 1 week since we talked about the Lonely song. So then we get to Harbor, okay? Harbor is one of the craziest ones in my opinion, and the photo of it, I'll try to put it here on the screen, was a ship's harbor. The colors are blue, very, just when you think about things that happen, ships at night. Okay. So, Do What You Love in the Dead of Night. That's the author and that's the copyright. And then the author is Vince Lynch, which Vince Lynch is a pioneer of AI. So I don't know if the connection is there. Like he works with like Poppy, the artist, who like really blends AI and art and music. He also once worked at Virgin Records, very relevant to this whole story. But he also is on a board that like helps regulate the ethics of our data use and how people use our data. And we all know that our data is used in a lot of unethical ways. So it could be related to that. So not sure, but that's that. Okay. So that's happening then. Then on the 22nd, Taylor and Tom go back to LA from Australia. The 24th is the anniversary of Folklore. That's when Folklore was released in obviously 2020, a year after we get these songs. So then Tom does a People interview on the 25th and debunking the rumor that he and Taylor's relationship is a well timed distraction, talking about it being authentic, just talking about everything you have to do to make sure you believe in it. And it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, everyone will have an opinion. As long as you know why you've done something and you've committed to it with authenticity, then you're okay. Similar to some things Travis has said. Okay, so then on the 26th, July 26th, we get the song Amsterdam. Do what you love while you can. And the author being Jacob Katz. Now, Jacob Katz, his big like claim to fame was emblem books. And I talk about this in my last video, but emblem books are basically help connect works of art, poetry, songs, you know, paintings, whatever, with symbolism. And then an emblem book like helps connect those two and what they mean, which is very interesting considering all the symbolism in the Taylor Swift cinematic universe. So we get that song. Now, the thing that's crazy about that song is that in 2020, that song is the only song out of all of these that's used as a sample in a real song. And like I said, I talk about this in my last video, but I'll go into that further in a future video. But it was a very, very viral song during the pandemic. And that's the only song that is known that if you Shazam the song, it'll pull up that other song. All the rest of them pull up the Do What You Love. So there's that. Then in 2020, on the 27th, Cardigan comes out as a single. And in the period that we're in, 2016, is when Taylor was papped like crab walking out of, I think it was the gym. Yeah, out of the gym because the media was so insane because obviously Hiddleswift, but at that point, Kim had dropped the video, Snakegate was in full force. And so she was literally trying to hide. This is kind of the era when she was like hiding in boxes and stuff, basically. So, isn't that insane to think of all these things happening throughout the years? Folklore, when she was like hiding in boxes, Hiddleswift, Kimye, 2019, these songs being dropped. Absolutely crazy. And I'll talk a little bit after this about what happened in other years as well, besides what I have here on this calendar. Okay, so things are quiet. We don't hear from her much for a few days. And then we get River Run. This is going to come in very heavily later on. So the song River Run comes on August 2nd. Remember 2882 on the Karma coffee cup, which if you look at it in a negative, the nails are orange and white, not just the blue and black. So River Run, do what you love along the river. So does that mean time? Who knows? Then the author is Humphrey Earwicker. and he is a character in Finnegan's Wake. And I talk about this a lot more in my last video, but Finnegan's Wake is supposedly one of the hardest works to actually finish and understand. But it was a work that he started and kept adding on to until it was a huge, expansive piece of literature that was telling the same story. It just kept adding on to it more and more over the years until it was this monstrous thing, which sounds very familiar, does it not? Okay. So there's that. That's the song that was written on that day, or that was published on that day. So then August 3rd, obviously August 3rd is well known in the TSCU, a number that we talk about all the time. Some people think it means Carly. I think it means other things, whatever. Exile was released as a single on that day. Again, just the timing of that when you look at the other things happening in the past, wild. So Exile's released as a single. Tom goes back to Australia without Taylor, and she's kind of left to her own devices in New York City. So she lays low, and then suddenly Tom joins Instagram August 9th. So 8/9, he joins Instagram and he doesn't follow Taylor. So he joins but doesn't follow her. So on that date is when we get the song Football. Now it's talking about the European football, like soccer, but still interesting considering 8/9, 2016. The copyright is in the daytime. So do what you love in the daytime. And the author is Manuel Santos, who I'm assuming is the Manuel Santos who was a football player. Okay, fast forward a couple of days, and we're still in 2016. On August 11th, we get a Instagram story post, and the only reason that I put that in here is because it was her gardening with her parents, and she called it a garden party. So, with the whole garden of it all and folklore, I thought that was worth noting. And Tom is in LA for an award, but they don't see each other. She's in Nashville with her parents. So then on August 13th, Tom does a Facebook Live interview with the Hollywood Reporter and just talks about how there are many sides to a story. And sometimes there are a lot of stories out there which are false. And this is his last interview he ever gives about Taylor. So then before he goes back to Australia, he does pop into Rhode Island on the 14th. Taylor sends her jet and they have a quick reunion. He brings gifts. She's photographed meeting him and he's back in Australia. So, fast forward 2019, we get the Lover single released on August 16th. Also, in 2024 is when we get the new Moon and Stars bodysuit, and Mythos is the song that's released by Do What You Love. Now, In the Nighttime 2 is the copyright for that one. So In the Nighttime 2, the colors for this one are pink. The author is Augusta Gregory. Now, the next day, the 17th, is when Betty is released. So, okay, 1 year earlier, before Betty is released as a single, somebody releases the song Mythos. And the author is Augusta Gregory, co founder of the Abbey Theater and folklorist. So, the photograph, the cover of Mythos is the most notable one because it's very much giving Nice Boy Ed to me, but it's a girl on a pony that is dressed like a unicorn. Okay, same time she puts out Lover, exact same day, same year. And then fast forward 5 years, we get Moon and Stars. The next day in 2020, we get Betty as a single. Okay, so then a quiet week, and then we get the song Speyside. Now, that's the song that started off this whole thing because of Bon Iver's song that he released last month. Gosh, maybe it's been 2 months now. Yeah, because I discovered all this in September, whatever, like 6 weeks ago. So he released that song, Speyside. That's how I found all of this. This is the day that Speyside is released, the same day as Lover. So, Do What You Love releases the song Speyside on the same day that Lover's released. And the copyright, Do What You Love and Not What You Don't. And the author is George McPherson Grant, who is a family in Speyside. Now, Speyside is a town in Scotland, and Speyside is known for its whiskey. All of the world's best whiskeys come from there. If you Google Speyside, it is hard to find anything that is not related to whiskey, about the history and everything. They have a lot of castles and all of that kind of stuff, but everything that comes up is about whiskey. I had to like block those keywords to find anything at all. So, on the same day, Lover, the record is released. We got this song, Speyside. And in 2024, the movie Blink Twice is released. And obviously, that's a movie that was written and directed by Zoe Kravitz that she worked on for 7 years. So, all during the time that Taylor and Zoe were quarantining together, that they were spending so much time together in the summer of 2023 with her and Channing Tatum, who starred in this film, were times that Zoe was working very heavily in this project, filming it, editing it, all of that stuff. And if you haven't seen it, trigger warning, but I suggest you do see it. It's so relevant to this story. I haven't talked about it too much because I didn't want to do spoilers, but now that it's been out for a while, I definitely will. So that opens. Also, it's not here, but Justin Bieber and Hailey Bieber announced the birth of their baby on August 23rd. Completely probably not related, except that when Justin posted about it, he posted about it with the song Burn, like a very unconventional choice of a song to post when you were announcing the birth of your baby. Hairpin Raindrop on Twitter actually pointed this out to me, and the lyrics are very like burn it all down. And that's when they announced the birth of their baby. Also, way back in 2011, I believe, 13 years ago, August 23rd is the day that Justin showed up the Speak Now tour and sang Baby with Taylor when they were really good friends back then. So that happened on that date too. He opened for her back in Fearless, but he came back for Speak Now to duet that song with her on August 23rd. That's also the day in 2021 when Taylor joined TikTok. A lot of things happened on August 23rd. And then on the 24th, 1 year later, 2017, she released Look What You Made Me Do. Okay. So then that is also the day in 2016 that reports about Hiddleswift arguing. They weren't spending as much time together, so much going on, hard making their schedules work, and they were upset they couldn't see each other. Then the 27th is the anniversary of, I think it was 2021, not 100% sure, is when the National released their record, which was called How Long Do You Think It's Gonna Last? But that is the one that featured Taylor with Renegade and Birch. So then in 2016, Taylor skips the VMAs because she has jury duty the next day. So August 29th, in the middle of all of this mess, Taylor has jury duty. Now, the anniversary of that VMAs that she skipped in 2016 was the day she announced Midnights in 2022. Okay. So then fast forward August 30th, almost finally done with August. August slips away like a moment in time. So in 2019, that's when we get the interview about the song London Boy, when they ask her, like, oh, did you mean you did this all in a day? And she says no. And, they talk about that. So that's also the anniversary of when she gave Kanye the Vanguard speech and had her whole like girl squad there. I believe that was 2014. And that was when she and Kanye were like friends. So that's the anniversary of that date. Then Then in 2017, on that exact day, they had the VMAs again, and that is when Taylor premiered the video for Look What You Made Me Do. She didn't even go to the VMAs, and it opened with the music video for Look What You Made Me Do on the anniversary of the day that she gave the speech about Kanye's Vanguard. Okay, that was all August 30th, and on that day, we got the song from Do What You Love in 2019 called Stop. And that was the last one. So the author is Walt Whitman. The length is 224, which is 112 twice, which is the same period of time that the Red Era lasted, 224 days. Then Walt Whitman, of course, is the father of the free verse, gay poet, and the copyright is Mockumentary Films. Y'all, I died when I saw this. So it's the end of August, August 30th. Mockumentary films the same anniversary as the Vanguard thing when she had her whole girl squad there, when she wore that horrible fuck ass outfit, when she talked about London Boy, when she premiered Look What You Made Me Do. Like, the anniversary of all of that is when somebody releases Do What You Love, a song called Stop, Mockumentary films, last one in the whole series. And then this group has never released another song since then. Okay. Like, just the mockumentary films for just a second. When we talk about I'm Still Here, the hat that she wore, and when she says that in Karma. So I talked about this like a million years ago, but there is a documentary, mockumentary that was made by Joaquin Phoenix about, basically, he pretended that he was making this big career change and he convinced everybody around him, and everybody thought it was actually real, and then it turns out it was just for like a mockumentary. It was a whole thing. And I can make another video about that if anybody's interested. But considering that I'm still here of it all, the mockumentary, and the fact that just I've talked a million times about Taylor filming this whole relationship and everything that's happening for some sort of documentary. Plus, everybody is assuming that she's making an Eras documentary, especially now that she's being followed around by cameras. But back when the Uno party game party started, if you are familiar with that, Taylor went to Questlove's Uno parties and everybody started talking about it, obviously. During that whole thing is when, of course, I did a deep dive on Questlove and realized that he had won an Oscar, just like the year before, for his documentary about the revolution that was never filmed, like the revolution that couldn't be filmed. And it was a whole revolution that happened in Harlem, and it was related to music and politics, the whole thing. So back then I said that I thought that this might be the revolution that could be filmed, like that they were filming this whole thing, tracking this whole thing, and that we were going to get to see this whole thing from beginning to end, because I do feel like this is a revolution, just a very modern one. So the mockumentary thing shook me on many levels, obviously. Okay, so then we close out August. This is the anniversary of the day when 15 became a single, and also the anniversary of the day when Wildest Dreams became a single. So those things happened on the same day, last day in August. Both very, very relevant songs, important songs. So wrapping it up in September, on September 6th, 9/6, which is so funny because I didn't even realize that. And I made a video like a month or so ago on my TikTok about how 6/9 and 9/6 were numbers that continuously came up over and over and over. And 9/6 is the day that the media reported that Taylor and Tom had broken up. So, obviously, an important date in this whole story. So, all of that happens literally at the same time that 3 years later, those songs were being released on Apple Music. Like, the exact same period of time over those 3 months. Okay, now we're just going to go over it again really quickly, but I'll show you some of the relevant photos and moments and other things that happened, like the surprise songs that she sang that might be relevant. So, this is just a little timeline that I've started putting together. It is still a work in progress. I'm not done with it, but we can look at this and see that May 1st is actually when they met, Tom and Taylor, at a pre-Met Gala dinner at Anna Wintour's house in NYC, because they were co-hosting the Met. What's, again, very interesting is that Idris Elba is there. He is Taylor's co-host in Cats. He's also the one whose clip she uses at the beginning of the London Boy song. So here's London Boy again coming up. He's in that song. He's in Cats. He's here at the dinner right here with Tom Hiddleston. I don't know why I don't have it here, but Taylor was seen. This is the look I emulated for the Eras tour, where she is Bleachella and she has the plaid skirt on and the leather jacket. It's like iconic. That's that day. That's the day she meets Tom Hiddleston. Okay, so then May 2nd, they have a dance off at the Met Gala. Okay, so there's the photos from that. in a snakeskin dress, mind you. I think that the theme for Reputation was determined way before everything happened. I think it just got amplified. But anyway, I think Karma, if it was even called Karma, was already going to be snake related. So if you've been following along on my TikTok or on this YouTube channel, I have made a video, or on my podcast, where I talked about these anonymous pumpkin messages that predicted a huge amount of themes in TTPD and the vault tracks. And so I do think that they are authentic. The first 13, at least. There have been some of late that I don't think so. But anyway, this is the same period of time that those messages were submitted in 2023. So they meet May 1st. May 2nd is the Met Gala. May 16th, he's asked about her and he just says, I sat next to her at dinner that night. She was very charming. She's amazing. Then May 13th through 19th is the period of time when those Anon messages were submitted. So throw that into the mix as well. Okay. 6/2/2016, Taylor and Calvin's breakup is announced. 6/2/23, I Wish You Would and The Lakes were the songs that she performed. 6/2/24, we got The Prophecy, Long Story Short, and then 15, You're on Your Own, Kid, which a hell of a set of surprise songs, if you ask me. 6/3 of 2019 is the first song we got by Do What You Love, the song Tree, All Day Every Day, author Buddha. 6/3/23, the surprise songs were You All Over Me and I Don't Want to Live Forever. And that was when Maren Morris came, dressed in her zebra pants. Then in 6/3/24, we got Glitch and Everything Has Changed. So then on 6/4 is when Taylor attended the wedding of fans, Max and Kenya, in New Jersey. Remember, Taylor spent every summer of her whole childhood and like middle school years in New Jersey. That's also where she wrote the infamous book, A Girl Named Girl, that we all want to know more about. These are the outfits that she wore. The shoes were called Truce Mirror leather sandals. So, with the whole mirroring of it all, just wanted to make sure I put that in there. There we go. So there's the dress. You can see I love that. One of my favorite things she's worn. And then here are the mirror shoes. So I love this outfit on her. I have all these other Anons on here. Like I said, I don't swear to the validity of them or anything like that, but I have it on here. This one says, A Cross in Poetry, Born from the Same Story. Is interesting when you think about all of this kind of seeming to be born from the same story. Intertwined, interlaced, interconnected. And that's just how it works. That's how you get the girl. I'm going to get her back. Okay, so 6/15, I'm not going to go over every single thing, but 6/15 is when it was pretty much announced that they were together. This is when they were spotted making out at her home in Westerly, Rhode Island, which everybody calls Holiday House, but it's actually, she named it Watch Hill. It's the Watch House. So she had ended things with Harris only 2 weeks before, 13 days, and the love just bloomed pretty instantly. Okay, so those are those pics. That's from that period of time. I just realized that picture was cut off. So this is when they really were in the tabloids, the date that we talked about, June 15th. These are those pictures. So this was their first official anything that they were anything. 13 days after she and Calvin had broken up. And she was wearing the rosette cutout dress. And she was wearing his jacket that was the Ralph Lauren quilted barracuda jacket. Which is just funny. But, she's worn Ralph Lauren quite a lot as of late. So then on 6/16, that was, again, fortnight behind the scenes release. Gracie releases Us, Bad Blood documentary. Kim's GQ interview drops. In 2023, she sings Mr. Perfectly Fine and The Last Time. And this is when they are seen boarding her private jet to NYC. Then on 6/17, The Story of Us and Seven is the song that she played in 2023. This show is going to come in later. It's very, very important. It was the Father's Day show. This show is important. and it comes up again and again. June 17th, that was the day that he was talked to by TMZ for the first time about Taylor. So on the 21st is the day that we get our second song from the group Do What You Love after the glitch period, and 18 days after the first release. And that's when we got Bar None, especially if it's illegal, Beaver Cleaver. The 16th is when she and Tom are their first like public date outing. Abigail's there, Austin's there, and they're at a Selena Gomez concert. It's very much giving like a Kissgate situation. And I don't even talk about Kissgate, but this feels very similar to that, which is funny because they are very linked romantically here in the press and with fans. But when that happened with Carly, she wasn't. I don't think she and Carly were kissing in that. That's just my personal opinion. But they were at least as close as this. And so it's very telling that she and Carly were at least as close as that. And people said they were just friends, da da da. And like this was seen very romantic. But here they are here. And she is wearing the Dawn two piece in Bordeaux. So we've got like red wine and the Mara saddlebag. So we've got a saddle. She wears a lot of saddlebags during this period of time. There was no show in 2023, but in 2024, that's the night that she sings Hits Different and Death by a Thousand Cuts and The Black Dog, Come Back, Be Here, and Maroon. What a fucking insane group of surprise songs. This year, 621, which can be 6-3 as well. Again, glitch. Hits Different, Death by a Thousand Cuts, The Black Dog, Come Back, Be Here, and Maroon. And just for the record, Hits Different is technically track 21 on Midnights, and Death by a Thousand Cuts is track 10. So we've got a 1-1-2 there. And it's worth noting that the next day is when the Screens Eras Tour were glitching during Who's Afraid of Little Old Me. So then again on the next day in 2024 is when the Screens were glitching and she sang Thank You Amy and Mean and then Castles Crumbling. That was a day that they were in Nashville in 2016. And she wore some shorts called Lavish Alice. And so then on the 23rd, this is the day that sources say Tom met her parents at her Nashville apartment, but she is at the Country Music Hall of Fame and she's wearing this gingham, which we've seen her in gingham recently. And this is called the Mason dress in Hamilton. And she's wearing the saddlebag again. And the shoes are called Little Owl sandals. So in 2024 is when she sings Us and then with Gracie and then Out of the Woods and Is It Over Now and Clean. And then in 2023 is when she sang Paper Rings and If This Was a Movie. That night on 2023, she also had dinner with country artist Haley Williams and her husband in Nashville. That's where we get these pictures right here with Tom as well. This is Haley. Holly is Hank Williams Jr.'s daughter. So then the next day, the 24th, is when Calvin's Messy Tweets came out. And that same day, same year, is when they arrive in Essex and spend the day with Tom's mom. So this is Taylor looking very mom, getting off of her plane. This is the first day that she met Tom's mom. These are those pictures. Crazy. Like, this is 9 days after they went public, 3 weeks after she announced her split with Calvin. And this is them in the classic in the car papped photo. That she very much had the mom hair then. In 2023 is when she sang Dear John and Daylight on this day. So then in 2020, so then the next day, 625, is the second day that she met Tom's mom. These are the pictures that most people talk about. These right here. But this is actually the second day that they had hung out. And his mom's name is Diana. And she's living in a British rom-com dream. Man, that sounds really familiar. Like Tavis is, living in a fan fiction Lifetime movie vibe, looking very much in love. And this is also the day that the famous music video drops. So Taylor in this was wearing Mother, the Looker Stretch skinny jeans, in Graffiti Girl. That is an interesting set of names. The Looker, Mother, the Looker Stretch skinny jeans in Graffiti Girl. Then she was wearing ancient Greek sandals in black leather, cavadia, I think it's what it's called. So considering the Greek of it all. And then that saddlebag once again. That was the 25th. This is like a whirlwind, right? Okay. On the 26th, there's another Anon submitted here in 2023, I think, maybe 2024. I can't even keep up at this point with these. Volcanoes erupt, and with chaos they triumph. Fumes bloom, ashes blanket the town. Lava flows in unpredictable patterns like veins in our lifelines. If only you could cross mine. Now, I don't know if this is 2023 or 2024, but if it was 2023, that is interesting because Maren Morris's music video for the bridge basically shows ashes blanketing a town. So I'll look into that. But yeah, that happened. Then they are again spotted out with his mom, so 3 days in a row. And they were at the beach. Here's Taylor's outfit, nice beach outfit. She borrowed his mom's boots for the walk. The black orchid in Malaga wine. So we've got another like red wine reference. And that saddlebag once again. Okay. So then on the 27th, I told you this is a whirlwind, is when they head to Italy and they go to the Colosseum in her yellow dress. They make out on the top of the Colosseum here. She is seen using this is the camera she brought on her trip, the OMDE M1 camera by Olympus, which again with the Greek of it all. But she's wearing a pointed toe pump, 45 millimeter pointed toe pump in navy, and then a reformation dress in the color sunshine, and the cruiser bag. Very shake it off. Okay. That same night, they are out and about in Rome. This is her here. And that top is the double strap V back camisole. Okay, so then on the 28th, we get the song Traction, and that is And Nothing Else. John Haywood with the epigrams. So we get that song. This was when they were in Rome and went to the Vatican and had their relationship blessed. This is her again looking very mom here. This is them at the Vatican. She's wearing again the brand Mother and again the Looker, but these are in the color Stayin' Alive. She is also wearing Ray for Love and Lemons, which, the lemon hat in the Carmen music video. But Ray for Love and Lemons, Myra Heel. Most importantly, she is carrying the Elizabeth and James Zoe perforated saddlebag. Betty and James. Later that day, they board a helicopter and she is in this outfit here. She's also still carrying the Elizabeth and James Zoe perforated bag. So then the next day in 2024, on the 29th, she sings the Albatross, Dancing with Our Hands Tied, and This Love and Ours together. So I don't have it on here, but 6:30 is the anniversary of the Masters whole situation when that came to light. And she sang Clarabout and the Lucky One in 2024, as well as You're on Your Own Kid. And in 2023, it was show number 38, and that is when the lift didn't work and she had to run, and it was like still Swift AF Boy. And that's when she did that iconic performance of the song Evermore. And she also sang I'm Only Me When I'm With You. So then we get to Tamerica, and of course, Blake and Ryan were there, Cara Delevingne, Carly Kloss, Gigi, Ruby Rose, Alana Haim, Abigail. I mean, here's the group photo here. And she wore all kinds of things, but mostly with Americana titles. She did wear black and white gingham again. And she did wear other sandals that were called the Greek sandals. These were called the smoking slipper. And this is that very famous picture of her and Tom. This vintage dress when she sang karaoke with Abigail with the cherries on it. Karaoke with Ed wearing the Rails Knox denim jacket. So lots of different outfits from that weekend. So on the 5th is when we got in 2019 the song Stoic. And in 2024 is when she sang I'm Gonna Get You Back and Dress, and then You're in Love and Cowboy Like Me. On the 6th is when they are headed to Australia. This is the Bellamy dress. We've got this gingham again, but this one is called Lyon, which is the city in France, obviously, which happens to be where she was when her piano malfunctioned. And she said, sometimes your instruments just break and you have to fix them. My boy only breaks his favorite toys. And it was also where she was when she sang Glitch. And she sang Chloe, Sam, or Marcus. And that is on record 11 and it is song 21. So we've got another 112. But yeah, so that's when she sang Glitch, was in when she was in Lion. So got that fun little connection there. The day they headed to Oz. And she's also got her cruiser bag again. Obviously, the next day is when we got Speak Now. We got Travis coming to the shows. Okay, 7-8. Calvin drops Olay. And in 2023, she plays Last Kiss and Dorothea. 7-9, there's another Anon message. Cracks in our story and on the ground that we've paved 3 years in advance, like we'd live to this day. Lights will bleed through and our secrets will follow. Debris will subside and they'll know of the hollow. Okay. Then 7-10. That is when they were out at an Italian restaurant on the Gold Coast. She wears this dress in black white cap gray. White cap like they have on the waves. And then the small canvas and leather shoulder bag and the Libby heel. But it is braided. Okay. In 2024, she sang Closure, Perfectly Good Heart, and Last Kiss and Sad, Beautiful, Tragic. While they're on this trip, she visits a children's hospital in Australia on the 12th. So in 2017, that was the day we got her last Instagram post, Selena's Fetish. And then as far as the song releases, that's when we got Lonely. Okay. The next day in 2024 is when she sang The One in Wonderland and I Almost Do in the Moment I Knew. In 2016, that's when the news about This Is What You Came For dropped and the Katie Taylor tweets and all of that. Which, when think about that being like when Snakegate really officially started, the whole fell through the rabbit hole and could have been the one, would have been the one, is really fascinating to think about. And I almost do in the moment I knew, like all of that, like, okay. They're out shopping, and we get the proposal rumors. She's wearing the same shorts that she wore at the 4th of July party, Tamerica, and then we get Adidas Stan Smith letter, which just the Stan of it all is funny. And then Jerome Dreyfus mini Momo crossbody bag. Snakegate starts. This is kind of when my timeline, I haven't gotten to update it that well, but I will say there was no show in 2023, but in 2024, she sang Slut and False God. And then she sang Superstar and Invisible String. Superstar and Invisible String were from records 2 and 8. So we got that 28 again, or the 8 and 2. So like I said, I don't have the timeline as detailed for these as I did. It's still a work in progress, but on the 22nd, here is when we get them out and about in LA, their first day back from Australia. Got the boy tee, the Stan sneakers again, and the cruiser bag. So it is interesting that this was their first day back in LA. And in 2023, on this date, Taylor sang, "This is why we can't have nice things," and everything has changed. Then they are last spotted out looking happy together at a dinner in Santa Monica. Here's the fit. The midnight sage tea dress. So the last time she was seen out happy at dinner with Hiddleston, she was wearing a dress called Midnight. And the embellished metallic sandal and the Etro crossbag. So 8-3, whenever she releases Exile as a single in 2020, then in 2023, she sings the I Can See You in Maroon. In 2024 is when she sings It Was a Fairy Tale and I Think He Knows, then the Black Dog in Exile. That was also in 2022. That was the date that Donald Trump was arraigned. And in 2023, that was the date that he was indicted, both same day. Also in 2023 is when she announced the additional expansion of the Eras Tour and the last US dates. All of that on the same day. That is also the day that Tom heads back to Australia without Taylor. That Australia trip really seems significant for some reason. On 8/6, she attends a birthday party for Carly Kloss and Mike Hess in the Hamptons, and she joined Nelly on stage and they sang Dilemma. She also debuted her curly hair there. Here's Tom flying to Rhode Island to visit her and her parents, which this was the last time that we saw him like associated with her. The ombre bag is worth noting. So, of course, on the day that the song Football was released is when Taylor played The New Romantics and New Year's Day and announced 1989 TV. On the day Lover dropped as a single, and we got the song Mythos. In 2024, she sang London Boy, which just keeps coming up in this story, and Dear John, Sad, Beautiful, Tragic together. The next day, the Betty single. And in 2024, I Did Something Bad finally, and My Boy Only Breaks His Favorite Toys with Coney Island. And then the next day, she wipes her social media. Now, on the day that she released Look What You Made Me Do as a single in 2024, she sang I Forgot That You Existed and Sweet Nothing. Like, so that's our timeline. That's the continuation of that insane story. And I'm going to hopefully go right into my next video so I can talk about the rest, because that is only the tip of the iceberg, you guys. That is literally only the beginning. There's some way crazier things, in my opinion, that tie into this. So make sure you stay tuned for the next one. And it's not going to be another several weeks before I make the follow up. A lot happened. I got to go to the Miami tour and ended up staying in Miami for several days. And then I had to recover from that because I'm autistic, and that was a draining of my social battery. And then Taylor started being absolutely unhinged on the Eras tour. So there was a lot to take in. And, I'm always researching as well. So stuff just piles up. But I'm going to hopefully go straight into the next video. So make sure you check out the next one. And yeah, watch the other ones if you haven't. Subscribe, comment, share, all of that stuff. If I get to 1,000 subscribers and I think it's like 3,000 hours of watch time or whatever, I can get monetized. And that would be lit. TikTok really doesn't pay me. So be cool if somebody did. Thanks so much for tuning in. And yeah, I'll see you next time.
I think there's been a glitch.